Hi everyone, today I'm here with Marcos Vasquez, a certified personal trainer and a strength and conditioning coach who's here to share with us his profession and how you can be a personal trainer or a certified strength and conditioning coach and how that role applies to the health and well-being space. So Marcos, thanks for being with us today.
Okay.
And so first of all, I feel like a lot of people have uncertainties or they're not sure. They just think like a personal trainer is the guy that teaches you how to lift weights in the gym. What exactly is a personal trainer and what is personal training and how is that different from strength and conditioning coaching and what are the differences?
They're similar. Like from far away, you would assume that they're twins, I guess you could say. But then as you get closer, you just find out they're just sisters, so they're just related. Personal training can include some strength and conditioning, but strength and conditioning doesn't always include just personal training. Personal training can be included for like rehab purposes, just to boost people's confidences, or just to get from a low point in someone's life to a higher position. So just to increase their overall being and their ability to do certain things. So that's the differences between those two. And then personal training, in my own experience, because most of my work has been more on personal training and group training. It's in the name, it's fairly personal. You and the clients, whether it's one or multiple, it's getting to the level where you're able to connect with them and help them pretty much gain their confidence and then make sure that they stay consistent. They stay consistent with the workout plans and then just continue to feel like they are progressing, which they should be doing. But yeah, that's personal training and strength and conditioning to me.
Okay, so it seems like personal training and strength and conditioning coaching address other aspects of well-being besides simply just like in the gym. There's like the psychological aspect. I'm sure people come to you for nutrition advice or injury advice. What's the scope of personal training and strength and conditioning coaching, and where kind of is the border between your scope of practice versus like referring to like a nutritionist or a personal or a physical therapist, a chiropractor, a physician?
So my area versus a nutritionist or like a physician, anything like that. So me, it's more like I'm a mathematician. I know a little bit of physics, but I don't know everything about physics. I just know more about math. And then for a person that's actually in physics, they know a good amount of math, but they're mostly about that in-depth thing about physics. You know, like they know certain laws, they know all those things. So like for me, I know a little bit of nutrition, I know a little bit of this, and then depending on where I want to kind of push myself into, because with personal training, you can specialize. So there's people that might specialize into powerlifting, there's people that might specialize into Olympic weightlifting, there's people that might specialize in track and field or other team sports. You know, so I might know a little bit of all of the above, but there's one area that I'm usually better at. For me, for example, it's powerlifting. Because of that, I have a little bit more in-depth knowledge on pretty much leverages and then where someone might be a lot more comfortable and able to move more weight in a given area. Part of personal training, part of strength and conditioning is knowing your limits, knowing when you don't know something and when to be honest about it, because that's how you keep that personal aspect in play. Like that's how you keep the client's trust in that you know certain things and that they will continue progressing. Like that's when you would recommend someone to somewhere else, but you still have to be confident in the stuff that you know. And over the years that you are doing these certain things, whether it's personal training or strength and conditioning, there's going to be things that are maybe in your toolbox, like a few tools in the very beginning, and then you slowly add a little bit more, and it will change over time. So you might get rid of certain tools, you might keep other tools. It just depends on your clients, it depends on your specialization, and it depends on the experiences that you have with that field of members or clients, however you want to put it.
What exactly are the different specialties of personal training and strength and conditioning? Is it sport specific, or you mentioned like weightlifting, powerlifting?
Yeah. So the differences include rehab, and then there's, like I said, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and then there's just the general public where maybe someone that's new to personal training, they might start off in like a commercial gym. So starting off in a commercial gym, you're going to have a lot more, I don't want to say common, but general, more of the general public, basically. And most of the general public, the reason why they're going to a commercial gym and seeking a personal trainer is either they don't know certain things and they want someone to help them to progress from the get-go, or they ran out of time at their physical therapist, and their insurance just won't cover it anymore. So it's usually cheaper to go to a personal trainer at a commercial gym. So those are going to be mostly your clientele. So more of the older people, older audience, and then also people recovering from certain surgeries, and then also people that are low in confidence, self-confidence, and just want that help in progressing from the get-go, learning certain things, learning what they could do to eventually go off on their own and continue on their own.
Why in particular did you choose personal training and strength and conditioning?
I specifically chose it because I know that when I first started my journey, so like I started working out, that was when I had first graduated from high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a specific career. And I also gained a lot of weight because there was a lot of things that were going on at that time. But anyways, I didn't know certain things, so I read a bunch of articles, and I did try to reach out to people, but a lot of people that I reached out to, they were just general gym goers, and I didn't learn anything good out of them. If anything, they were kind of turning me down the path. But anyways, I decided to end up going into personal training because eventually I found out that I've always been a science guy, but I learned a lot more through those articles, through those videos, and then through school, I found out that there was a thing called kinesiology. So I decided to go into that major, and that's helped me learn a lot. And I've been wanting to help those same people that I used to be. Like, I used to be an overweight person. I used to not know anything, and I was struggling to try to see progress in the beginning. But once I learned everything that I wanted to learn, everything that I needed to learn in order to progress, I wanted to help other people as well. So I decided to actually join this gym. So I started working at this gym 3 or 4 years ago now. And I started off as a personal trainer here. And I liked it a lot because it was pertaining to my major as well. And still to this day, like, I'm not super sure about my career path. I do have a few years before I actually graduate. But it's definitely helped me kind of decide what path I want to go to. Like, it's narrowed down a lot of things I wanted to eventually pursue. So personal training is just, in my opinion, a good place to start off if you want to go into the health industry or maybe even go and be a doctor. It's a good way to get exposed to different clientele, different scenarios in person, and gain that experience in order to kind of know what you might experience later on.
It's interesting you mentioned that because one of my mentors is I think he's in his 50s. He's a master's bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And he's just like super jacked, but he's a physician too. And he mentioned that before going to medical school, he was a personal trainer for like 15 years or so.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you definitely have that experience with, learning how to help people with personal training and getting a sense for individuals and benefiting, different aspects of their health through personal training. Yeah. So.
And another cool thing that I've been learning as well is, like, when you gain this background of personal training and then actually going through, because like I'm actually going to start working with the soccer team from my old high school. I'm going to start working with them somewhere in the next 2 months or so. So getting that background where I kind of learned that sports aspect, where I learned the weightlifting aspect, if I ever decide to be a doctor, I'll have that background where I understand what went on in that realm. But because sometimes physicians, sometimes doctors don't understand that part. So I'm not saying they give bad recommendations. It's just not always the best, So that's something that might come into play. Your mentor might know what I'm talking about as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You mentioned before we started this kind of interview that you work 6 days a week. What's a typical day in your life like? And I'm sure it probably varies from day to day. Could you kind of give us an overview of that?
Before I go into my own personal day-to-day during the week, a lot of people do think sometimes that, oh, you're a personal trainer, you must get a ton of time to work out. It's not necessarily true, especially if you're a student. So my week consists of me coming to work. I wake up at 4:30, come to work for the morning classes, and then I'm off by 10 o'clock, depending on if I have a personal training client afterwards. And then after that, I have to try to squeeze in my workout, my own personal workout, because I'm pursuing certain things outside of my career, outside of school. But those hobbies don't matter right now. But after that, after I get my workout in, typically around 2 hours, I go get food, shower, and then go to my schooling. for college. And then from there, I go to sleep, and then I wake up and repeat the whole process again Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays, I do have a 2-hour time frame where I come in for group training classes as well. So that's typically my schedule. It's very sporadic and very rushed, I guess you could say. So.
Would you say that's similar to like other personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches as well?
It depends. So like if you're working for a commercial gym, commercial gyms, like it's a good spot to start off if you're a personal trainer or a strength and conditioning coach. Typically people that do become strength and conditioning coaches, they already have their bachelor's, they already have that experience as a personal trainer. But if you're new to everything, I recommend going to a commercial gym. It's not going to be the best pay, but it's going to be the best experience you could get. Because like I said earlier, you're going to have a whole bunch of different clients that are ranging from like surgeries, that are ranging from different ages, and then also in training experiences. So you could have someone that's brand new to training, or you might have someone that's been training for years, but they just want to get back into it. So it just depends on that part. But after gaining a few years in that realm, I would say that a better place to work at for a personal trainer would be either a private gym or a non-commercial gym in general, just because you'll get better pay, because usually with those gyms, it's not an hourly type of thing. You won't be like as pushed for sales, but your sales do depend on how much you're going to. Well, basically, closed mouths don't get fed. So that's the idea there. You do have to be good on showing off what you can do and advertising yourself. So that's the commercial gym. Again, that's where you'll gain that experience. But then once you do go to those private gyms, that's when you'll get better pay, and only a percentage of what you're earning, it goes to that private gym as well, because that's usually your rent, basically, to use the facilities.
So in terms of practice settings or employment settings for personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches, there's the commercial gyms, which you recommend starting out with. Then there's the private gyms. What other settings are there?
So besides the private gyms, there's either your own gym or you could be a traveling personal trainer. And traveling personal trainers, I have a buddy that did do that for a bit as well, and he would pretty much carry his own equipment in his car. He has his own barbell, so he would take his barbell, I guess, to those clients as well. It's just if you decide to do all that on your own, whether it's your own gym or your travel personal trainer, you do have to get really familiar with taxes. I'm still trying to learn that aspect as well. So I bought like a Taxes for Dummies book, so I'm trying to get all that down. But that's probably going to be a better income, not in the beginning though. I have two buddies that own their own gyms, and within the first year or two, because both of them have had their gyms for at least a year, the one that has had their gym the longest has been 2 years. It's not the best pay, but you really have to love what you're doing in order to be able to do that and go through all of that and be your own business owner. So those are other better scenario or better settings to be working at, but it's still rough in the beginning.
How do you become a personal trainer or a strength and conditioning coach? What kind of training do you need to do? What kind of certifications are there? And do you recommend some certifications over another?
So I'll answer the last one first. So there are certain certifications that are better. When I first got my first certification, I did opt for something that was cheap off of Groupon, just so that I could get in right away. So that one I would recommend if you already have a sense of what you're doing, but it's not the best long term, and also it's not the best as in like most well accepted. Some of the best certifications that you can go for is the NASM or the NAFC certifications for a certified personal trainer. And how to attain them? You've got 2 to 3 ways to go about it. So you could either go out and do it on your own, or you could go to school and learn about anatomy and do all that stuff. Or you could find a school that actually gives out a certification course. So one of the schools locally, we're around Sacramento area right now, Sac City, that's actually my community college that I go to. They have a certification course to be a certified personal trainer. And I would recommend to go through that course just because they do sprinkle a little bit of psychology, which is pretty important whenever you work with any kind of people in general. But then also it's going into a classroom where there's someone that knows more than you, which I highly recommend any certified personal trainer to go through, whether it's through that that course or just in general throughout their career, try to be around people that know more than you, because that's how you're going to learn a lot more quicker. But anyways, back to that. They'll be able to teach you a lot more and answer your questions sooner. And it's a longer process, but it's still better because by the end of the course, you will more than likely actually truly know your things. Afterwards, after you attain your certification, I do recommend that you still keep an open mind. Like I mentioned earlier, you'll start off with a lighter toolbox, but at the end you'll have a humongous thing filled with a whole bunch of things. And at that point, you're going to have to chop out certain things in order to figure out what specifically works the best for your members or your clients, because you'll have a field that you decide to specify in. But yeah, that's usually different ways.
What are the most challenging aspects of personal training?
So in the beginning, it's definitely the talking to people. But after you get used to doing that and getting used to recognizing certain traits within a person, you'll be able to develop a way to coach that person. So in my group training classes, I get a whole bunch of different kinds of people with a whole bunch of different types of characteristics, and I learn how to coach that person. So I might coach someone a little bit more gently, but then I might be pushing someone else a lot more aggressively. Just depends on their characteristics. Like if someone's shy and very cautious about things, I might even go down and do the actual movement that I'm trying to help them out with. And then if it's someone that has a background, so for example, I have an ex-Olympic boxer in one of my training classes. Like he's pretty intense, but to keep at his level, I do push him aggressively. So that those are two different scenarios where you might look at that. And I do get older people as well in my classes. In the very beginning, they are fairly cautious, but as long as you help them through those little steps where they start off at a regression and slowly progress through different progressions, they'll gain their confidence in order to almost not need you towards like 2 months, 3 months in. So.
On the flip side, what's the most rewarding aspect of personal training?
The smiles, the weight losses, thank yous. I really appreciate all of that, and that's very rewarding to myself. I've helped a lot of people lose hundreds of pounds cumulatively. I've helped people go from feeling very gassed after one burpee to doing burpee box jumps repeatedly for reps. I've had people go from being scared of squatting with a barbell to squatting like 150, I believe was her best. So I've helped all that stuff, and they've always like given me back a thank you, a smile, and that's more than enough for me. Like I really appreciate all that.
Talk a little bit about some of them. What are misconceptions about personal training, strength and conditioning?
Like I said, time. People assume that you have all the time in the world. People assume that if you're a personal trainer, all you really want is money. Like, yes, that does happen sometimes, but a lot of the people that I associate myself with are personal trainers or are in this field because they actually love it. And those are the people that I also recommend that you surround yourself with. Like, surround yourself with people that you want to be as well. So if you are in it for the money, like, be around those salesman type of personal trainers that know their shit as well. So don't go to someone that's like just doing it just to make people sweat and not progress, because there is such a thing as overworking a person to the point where they don't progress. So be in it with people that care, be in it with people that know a lot and know a lot more than you.
What personality types or people with certain skills do best in personal training?
People that are patient, people that have good connections with other people. Like, if you meet a stranger, you have like a 5-minute conversation just like that over nothing. Those are the best people to become personal trainers. And then also people that are very, very curious about how to become better. Those are people that I would recommend becoming a personal trainer, because you'll learn how to get better not only for yourself, but also for the members and clients that you work with. So those are 3 really important things.
How well are personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches compensated generally? Do you feel it's fair? And what are ways you can increase that income?
Like I said in the beginning, I do recommend you go to commercial gyms to start off with your career. It's not going to be the best pay, not always anyways. But after that, as you gain experience and you do become more valuable, I would try to transfer over to a private gym. Like I said, private gym, it's only going to take like a small percentage of the income that you make. And then from there, as you become a lot better and a lot more well-known and you advertise yourself a lot more, you can spring off into doing everything on your own practically and then doing everything online if you can. I don't recommend online coaching, but I just maybe online programming, things like that. But if you do that, be very aware of the fact that a lot of your time is going to be talking to people online. So a lot of your time is going to be messaging this person weekly or daily, or your best success online is more than likely going to be saying, you can contact me at any time and I will respond as soon as possible, and be true to that. Don't lie about it. And that's how you'll be able to increase your ability to gain more money. But to make yourself more valuable, like I said earlier, it's very important you keep an open mind. It's very important that you talk to people that know more than you. And it's very important that you don't stick to one thing forever. Me in my first year of personal training, totally different me compared to now. Like, I was a lot quieter. I had certain ideas. I believed in BCAAs. I don't believe in those anymore. And there's certain things that I do now that I probably wouldn't have thought of back then. So it's definitely a progressment type of thing over the years, over what you experience.
So with all the changes in just kind of like the fitness sphere, in wellness, in health, with new research coming out, new equipment and training, new methodologies and protocols, how do you stay on top of all these advances?
So I follow two main sources, and then I also follow big accounts on Instagram as well. So my main sources I do recommend a lot of people is Mass Research and Review by Greg Nuckols. That's a really good place to start off. I highly recommend that you either attain a subscription to that, and it's not a lot, it's like $25 per month, and it's a huge database about a whole bunch of different topics and a whole bunch of research, and that's going to keep you up to date with a lot of that research stuff. And then for other articles I like to read, I go to Elite FDS. Greg Nuckols does have a free version of Mass Research and Review, and that's called Stronger by Science. That's totally free, and there is a lot of really good stuff on that as well. And then accounts that I do follow, I highly recommend Squat University. That's a really good one for a whole bunch of mobilization, different techniques, and then approaches to becoming more efficient in squatting and deadlifting, and also the Olympic lifts. And then aside from that, it depends on what you specifically want to be better at. I want to be better at powerlifting. I want to be better at physical therapy, because a lot of the issues that come up with powerlifting is mobility issues, inefficiencies, and imbalances like that. So I follow Strength Therapist. That's an actual account on Instagram. And then Steffi Cohen, she's extremely smart, extremely strong. And then other idols, but those are more like opinionated, awesome people, in my opinion, type of stuff. But try to keep an open mind, read a lot, and do what you can with books, like actual physical books. Because if you could go to Barnes & Noble, different places like that, even Goodwill, just look through the books. Those are cheaper books in general, but look through the books, look for psychology books, look for coaching books, look for anatomy books. Always stay touched up on your anatomy and physiology. That's honestly one of the better ways to try to stay up to date about all that stuff. And then also practicing what you learn. So the best way to actually truly learn something is to do it physically as well. So after you learn something, try to do something that is like an experiment to instill that thing into your mind. And then also try out with a whole bunch of other people as well.
Going back to the business aspect of things, how would you recommend getting a good PT job, either for someone just coming out, or even if, maybe let's say they've been doing like that commercial gym thing for a while and they want to go on to the next level? How would you recommend they do that?
So making connections with people. So again, this is another good thing about knowing people that know more than you and have been doing this longer than you. That's where you would be able to kind of make connections with them as well, because more than likely they have connections as well to better spots for you. So if you can move on to a better place, it's more than likely you can be with someone that you've been either idolizing, made friends with, or mentoring with in general. So that's a better way to kind of sprout out.
We talked a little bit about this before we started the interview, but you were mentioning how you kind of wanted to have more of an online presence. I'm sure part of that's dealing with like marketing yourself. What are tips that you recommend for personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches to market themselves better, either online or in person?
So to market yourself at your absolute best, you definitely want to know what you're absolutely good at. So like I said, you want to be confident in the knowledge that you know and be very honest about the things that you don't know, right? So know where your knowledge ends, know where your knowledge stuff is at its strongest. And then with that being said, when you want to market yourself, you want to know what you want to specialize in. If you want to specialize in weight loss, like make that apparent. If you want to specialize in helping people recomp or become a better composition, so more muscle mass, less body fat, make that more apparent. If you want to make people stronger, make that apparent. So just advertise yourself as to what you want to do to people and what your strengths are.
How easy is it to balance like work and life, and how do you? What tips would you give for personal trainers to manage their life? Since you said that schedule can be kind of shifting and somewhat hectic, and that might be hard to balance that with like a relationship or family and things like that.
So family tends to understand. Significant others, you definitely want to make sure you're with someone that understands that as well, understands who you are and why you do all this. But then also, I find that if you time block everything, kind of plan everything out weekly, like don't just think about the next day, but think about the next week type of thing, that's going to help out a lot with making sure that you're on track with your day. So time blocking, I just said that like a little bit ago, but time blocking is where you kind of plan out that whole week and you look at each day and you say, okay, from 10 to 2 o'clock, that's my time to try to get my workout in. If I get it before that, that's good. But if it's 2 o'clock and I'm done, I am done. Like I cannot go longer than that because I have to go to the next thing type of thing. Right? So that's something that I do recommend.
Having a strict schedule, maybe letting people around you know that schedule.
Exactly.
So that they know what to expect and you meet those expectations for them.
Yeah.
How has personal training and strength and conditioning changed since you started? And what changes do you see happening maybe in the next few decades?
So since I've started, it's become more online. It's become more about what you can do with people, not only in person, but far away as well. And in the future, I do see people trying to pretty much only be an online personal trainer or those things. Like I don't think that it's going to be super successful in the beginning, but maybe at some point it will be once we have more technology to actually be more in depth with how you meet with people, in depth on how to actually view how the person moves, because that's something that you can't just assume they are good at. If you meet someone online and they're like, oh, I want to build my squat, could you give me a program with that? And you give them a program, you can't just assume they already squat good. You want to make sure that they have everything at the right spots to the best of their efficiencies, basically. So if I work with anybody like that, right now, I work with people that are nearby, like it's still online, but I could always meet up with them. I could always just critique them in person. And then if I can't quite do that and it's something that I need them to do right away, I'll just have them film from the side, the front, the back of whether it's a squat, bench, or deadlift, because those are, I powerlift. So those are the 3 things that I'm really good at to make sure that people are doing good things with. But I do that so I could see their foot positioning, I could see how their knees are tracking, I could see if they're leaning too far forward, if they're bracing hard enough, or if they're overextending throughout the back. So it's just, you got to make sure that you don't lose that hands-on aspect. You got to make sure that you don't lose that personal aspect. Being online, you see all those trolls, you see all those people that just like use online just like other people use cars and increase their road rage. Like they lose that personification. They lose that ability to be human, and they just kind of forget certain things. So I just hope in the future that human connection isn't forgotten. And I hope in the future that specialization of understanding that each person is different and moves differently doesn't get forgotten.
Funny you say that, because I think a lot of medicine, even for physicians, kind of reflects that as well, where they're trying to move into more like using electronic devices to either even see people remotely with like screens and like the doctor's talking to you through a screen, or even just using other types of technology like the EMR system, where doctors are like kind of on their computers typing notes while they're seeing patients, and some of that like one-to-one like human interaction is getting lost, and some even aspect of care is getting lost in that human interaction in a way. So it's interesting how like other aspects of healthcare too are kind of facing a similar thing with technology.
I mean, you even see it on colleges. You see it everywhere you go. Like, people are losing that human connection by looking at their phones, doing all that stuff. You know? So it's not surprising, but at the same time, it's alarming, I guess. So.
How do you become a good personal trainer or strength and conditioning specialist?
So you become the best. You become good. You become better by making sure that you build your ability to be patient, you build your ability to connect with people, you build your ability to recognize certain characteristics. So like if you're able to spot from across the room that someone feels uncomfortable, feels mad, or like something's off, if you're able to see that sooner, then you're definitely progressing to be a better person. Like I said, when I first started personal training, I just saw people. But now I see individuals in my classrooms. I see certain characteristics, certain faces that trigger, okay, so she's hurting because I recognize that face as her hurt face. It's not her effort face. Effort faces, I usually recommend them as funny faces. So I tell everyone to make funny faces. But I know when I see a pain face. I know when I see whoa, that felt weird face. So, and also how people move. So like, I have some people that I have a lot of people that are really tough, but I have one person in particular where a few weeks ago, I could tell like she was in pain, but she wasn't saying anything because she's not a complainer. So I went up to her and I told her, hey, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, nothing. So at that point, like, I know that I have to dig into her to have her actually tell me what's going on, actually tell me like what's feeling discomfort. And to do that, like I just have to be very frank. And I told her, I know you're very badass. I know that you just push through pain. I know you don't like to complain, but tell me what's going on so that I could try to fix it and I could try to work around it with you. So that's how I can make group training classes more individual, and that's how you can become better as well. Just learning how to read people.
I think that's actually great advice, not just for personal training, but even for any aspect of healthcare or any like human-to-human profession. So
yeah, for sure.
Great advice in general, yeah. Well, thank you, Marcos, for being a part of this interview.
No problem.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below in the comment section. I'll include a link to Marcos's Instagram page, and he might be coming out with some other social media type stuff for you guys soon, so you can check those out too. Thank you guys again for watching, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.